Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Reveals for the new core set, Dimension Force, are coming to a close very shortly. Ever since Vrains ended and Sevens covered a different product, core sets have to fill the empty space left behind by anime import cards with legacy support. This has led to the revitalization of older themes with modern abilities, and the archetypes we'll be showcasing this week are no different. Today, we'll be covering another archetype of musical mates, the Symphonic Warriors. So like last time, I've composed a little parody song to introduce the deck.
Nope. No, you stop that right now.
Oh, come on, it was so much fun. If you're trying to stop me from embarrassing myself, let me remind you that I talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! On YouTube for a living. It can't possibly get much worse.
What? No, I love watching you embarrass yourself. It fills me with the kind of joy I used to get from torturing the souls of the damned.
Pardon?
But the last time you did that, you got hit with a copyright strike, and ABC is gonna have to try a lot harder to get money out of this operation.
Ah, you're right. Well, thanks for looking out for me.
Yeah, sure, whatever. I'm gonna go back to torturing the innocent souls of the damned.
Sounds good. So, let's tune up our instruments while getting acquainted with them, strike up the band to see how this set is played, and see what opening acts work best with our concert of competition. It's time to rock and roll with Symphonic Warriors. But before we continue, a quick reminder to please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed my content so far. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and the first stop on our trip is 20k, which means we're incredibly close to unlocking You Say Explained, where we'll be covering Junks, Stardust, and whatever other cards can help us rev it up. We've also got our Discord, where people are already jumping on the Mecha Gladiator Beast train. You can also follow me on Twitch, where you can join me for viewer duels and progression pulls, and don't forget about my Patreon, where you can gain access to my videos early, reach some of these milestones, as well as helping to determine which explained videos I make. Thank you all so much for watching, and now, back to the video. So, what's the deal with Symphonic Warriors? Well, they're a series of wind attribute machine type monsters who make it their business to be whatever level, type, or attribute is needed to access your favorite extra deck monsters. They premiered in the core set Storm of Ragnarok, so combined with the fact that they were all tuners at the time, they were only helpful as a way to gain access to synchros a deck might not otherwise be able to summon. But as time marched on and new cards and mechanics were released, the more plays Symphonic Warriors were positioned to help with, as besides from archetypes, attributes and types were one of the most common limitations placed on material to limit who could use what. Let's start by covering the card we started with, then seeing how Dimension Force shakes things up. First is Symphonic Warrior Bases, a level 1 tuner monster with 600 attack and 400 defense. Once per turn, you can select a face-up Symphonic Warrior monster on the field and increase its level by the number of cards in your hand until the end of the turn. You can also banish bases from your grave to select a Symphonic Warrior monster you control and increase its level by the number of cards in your hand until the end of the turn. And for the original trio, this effect templating is the norm. For instance, Symphonic Warrior Drums is a level 2 tuner monster with 700 attack and defense, and can select a Symphonic Warrior monster you control while declaring an attribute to change that targeted monster to that attribute for good, and can be banished from the grave for that same effect. Symphonic Warrior Piano is a level 3 tuner with 900 attack and 1300 defense, and has the exact same effect as Drums, but changes types instead of attributes. So as a quick reminder, Bases modulates levels, Drums modulates attributes, and Piano modulates types. There's no hard once per turn limitation on them, so you can do a lot of changes, provided you have the Symphonic Warriors on board to receive those changes. But despite their flexible parameters, they're not splashed into decks to utilize these effects very often. And to explain why, we're gonna have to fall back on one of my favorite little segments, Card Design Lessons with Nova. Today, we're going to be going over cabs, or cards that affect the board state. This refers to anything that puts cards onto the field or removes them, which is an important factor since most games are decided on what cards are on the field. This concept is highly tied in with the more familiar concept of card advantage, otherwise known as card economy. But where that's a general measure of how many cards you have available to play as compared to your opponent, cabs is more about evaluating how individual cards impact card advantage. As an example, Compulsory Evacuation Device. If you hit a main deck monster with it, it technically resolves as a -1 in card advantage. However, it still removed a card from the field, meaning that it can't apply any of its on-field effects or get in the way of your attacks. So even in this case, it's still a strong card that affected the board state. Cabs helps identify one of the main issues facing burn decks. Unless the effect damage is enough to win you the game, or it has some kind of ancillary effect, every card you spend on it is a -1. So you're losing card advantage, and unless it's doing doing anything to take cards away from your opponent in one way or another, it's not affecting the board state, so they can go off just as, if not more powerfully, than you. Tying this back to the topic at hand, Symphonic Warriors are caught in an even bigger conundrum, because their effects don't even put you closer to winning the game on their own. You need to combo them with other cards, and the payoff needs to be spectacularly powerful enough to warrant the usage of an engine that doesn't add any kind of summoning or negation power to your lineup. Which isn't to say they can't be fun to play. Effects like this are the hallmark of goofy combos and kitchen table Yu-Gi-Oh, but suffice it to say, it's gonna be hard to land that big record deal with tuners like this. But 6 years later, they'd get a pretty stellar update with some cards in Raging Tempest, including effects that weren't strictly about modulating card parameters. Wow. Symphonic Warrior Synths is a level 4 flip monster with 1200 attack and 1900 defense, and when flipped, you can add a Symphonic Warrior monster from your deck to your hand. Yay, a searcher! And once per turn, you can target a monster whose original name includes Symphonic Warrior, except another copy of itself, on your field or in your grave. And until the end phase, Synth's name becomes that monster's name and gains that monster's effects. You can also banish them from your grave to target one of your banished Symphonic Warrior monsters, except another copy of itself, and special summon it. So not only can it help grab whichever Symphonic Warrior you need, it also can be whichever one you need that it can see, as well as bringing back any you've already used. This provides a bevy of ways to take Symphonic Warriors from a lot of different zones and synthesize them into a new game plan. But they aren't the only monster subtype we'll be using. You've seen tuners, you've seen a flip, but now it's time to harness the power of Pendulum. Symphonic Warrior Guitar is a level 3 wind pendulum monster with 1500 attack and 100 defense, with a scale of 7. As a pendulum scale, Guitar can discard a card to special summon a Symphonic Warrior monster from your deck, and as a monster, when normal summoned, you can target a Symphonic Warrior monster in your grave and special summon it. So now you have a way to get even more Symphonic Warriors onto the board, whether they're in your deck or in your grave. And because of their newfound Pendulum Might, you can repeatedly summon out some non-tuners to pair with your modulating tuners. And with such a high scale and no pendulum restrictions, it's great for fielding most monsters you want to splash in. All these lead to a great amount of teamwork, but doesn't have much room for guitar solos. To pair with them, Symphonic Warrior Mikes is a level 5 pendulum monster with 2300 attack and 1100 defense with a scale of 1. However, if the other scale does not have a Symphonic Warrior monster in it, its scale is treated as 4. As a pendulum scale, once per turn during your end phase, you can target one of your banished Symphonic Warrior monsters and add it to your hand. But as a monster, after being normal or special summoned, you can normal summon any monster during your main phase this turn in addition to your normal summon. It doesn't place any restriction on what kind of monster you can use, so it's another win for splashing in monsters from other themes. You can also special summon them from your hand by removing 3 Symphonic counters from your field, which is a mechanic we'll get into in a bit. In the context of Symphonic Warriors, this card is outrageous. A big non-tuner means we can more easily access higher level synchro monsters, and the extra normal summon combined with pendulums means we won't be hurting for material to use, not to mention the application with Xyz and Link summoning. And since you can summon them out with Guitar's effect, getting that extra normal summon is a breeze. And that's the kind of power you get when you invest in the higher end of audio recording equipment. I wish my mic gave me an extra normal summon. But what about those symphonic counters? Well, they also got a new field spell, Symph Amplifier. Each time the effect of a Symphonic Warrior card is activated, you can place a Symphonic counter on this card when it resolves, and all Symphonic Warrior monsters on the field gain 100 attack for each Symphonic counter on Symph Amplifier. Once per turn, you can remove 5 or 7 Symphonic counters from your field to apply an effect depending on the number removed. If you removed 5, you burn your opponent for 300 damage for each Symphonic Warrior card on the field, and if you removed 7, you can banish cards your opponent controls or are in their grave up to the number of Symphonic Warrior cards on the field. Note that none of this specifies it counts only your own Symphonic Warriors, so keep an eye out just in case your opponent is leveraging them as well. Slowly building up the power of your Symphonic Warriors is pretty neat, especially because many of them lack a hard once per turn clause, so you can keep activating the effects to stock up counters. And it counts the effect activation of Symphonic Warrior cards, so you'll get counters when you activate a Pendulum Scales effect. Though since Amplifier doesn't trigger on the activation of Symphonic Warrior cards specifically, you won't get one when they're placed in your Pendulum zone. Gotta love the distinction between activating cards and activating effects. So on top of being able to play otherwise very restrictive extra deck monsters, you can also non-targeting banish a ton of your opponent's cards or burn them for up to 2400 damage, which makes sense considering this card is Amplifier. So that's all the cards we had access to previously. Now it's time to tackle the cards in Dimension Force. And if you thought that Pendulum Rock was just a fad, then you've got another thing coming. Symphonic Warrior Guitariz, not to be confused with Guitars, is a level 3 Pendulum Tuner monster with 1100 attack and 500 defense with a scale of 0. As a Pendulum scale, you can target another Symphonic Warrior card you control and return both it and Guitariz to the hand. This works well with bouncing monsters back to your hand so you can play them as scales, or resetting your scales, as Guitariz doesn't mesh super well with mics, but it's even better with Guitar. You can discard a Symphonic Warrior to summon anything out of your deck, then use green Guitarist to bounce back yellow Guitar so you can get its normal summon effect, maybe even using a free normal summon if you special summoned mics. And that's not all. If Symph Amplifier is in your field zone, you can special summon Guitarist from your hand, and if normal or special summoned, you can target a card in your Pendulum zone and add it to your hand, once again helping with managing your scales. So being a tuner that's a free summon in some circumstances, and can be Pendulum summoned back to make more Synchros is absolutely incredible, and really helps to 6-string your plays along. Symphonic Warrior DJs is a level 4 Pendulum monster with 1200 attack and defense with a scale of 8. As a Pendulum scale, once per turn during your main phase, you can change a face-down defense position Symphonic Warrior monster you control to face-up defense position, which really helps utilize synths to its fullest. And if a Symphonic Warrior's monster effect is activated, you can special summon this card from your Pendulum zone. Very nifty for getting more material. As a monster, if normal or special summoned, you can special summon a Symphonic Warrior monster from your deck in face-down defense position, except another copy of itself, or if you have Symph Amplifier in your field zone, you can special summon a Symphonic Warrior monster from your deck face-up instead, once again, except another copy of itself, but you negate its effects. This is an incredible enabler for the deck, with or without Amplifier. For instance, if you have green Guitarists and DJs, you can normal summon DJs and summon synths right out of your deck face-down, then use Guitarists as Pendulum effect to bounce itself and DJs to your hand. You can now place DJs in your Pendulum zone, use its effect to flip up synths, and use their effect to search a Symphonic Warrior. At this point, you can either special summon DJs from your Pendulum zone because you activated a Symphonic Warrior monster's effect, or keep it in the Pendulum zone to pair with Guitarists, because a scale from 0 to 8 is very powerful. So no matter what the situation, DJs can change your game plan with a remix and raise your card advantage like a phoenix. And to help with the increased emphasis on Symph Amplifier, we also got Dress Rehearsal, a continuous spell that also gains symphonic counters on it each time a Symphonic Warrior effect is activated when it resolves. It can remove 3 symphonic counters from your field to add a Symphonic Warrior monster from your deck to your hand, and if you normal or special summon any number of Symphonic Warrior monsters, you can add a Symph Amplifier from your deck to your hand. Uh-oh, I'm getting a lot of Gateway of the Six vibes here. But thankfully we've got some hard once per turn clauses here, so we're not in danger of getting any Symph FTKs. I think. Anyways, the fact that this can be copies 4, 5, and 6 of your big field spell, can search your Symphonics every turn to make sure you always have the card you need, all while increasing your Symphonic counter output is simply incredible. And that's why you go to the practice session, folks. You don't get to sound this good without putting in the work. And on top of all that, Symphonics now actually have their own boss monster. So while you can use outside help, now you have your own to stand on. Symphonic Warrior Rocks is a level 7 Synchro Pendulum monster with 2500 attack and 1500 defense with a scale of 10, requiring generic material. As a Pendulum scale, during the standby phase, you can add a face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand. This is very helpful in the absence of a Link monster, as this can help increase the power of your Pendulum summons. And when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can destroy both that card and this card. As a monster, if destroyed in the monster zone, you can place this card in your Pendulum zone, and if special summoned, you can add a face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, once again helping to keep your hand stocked up for a big Pendulum summon. And if Symph Amplifier is in your field zone, you can just destroy a card on the field. No cost, no targeting, just a pop. And don't forget that as a Pendulum Synchro monster, it can be used as great material for Excel Synchro summons, then can just be Pendulum summoned right back. So here's hoping we get a Pendulum Synchro Tuner monster to go with it, Symphonic Warrior rolls. Okay, so that's all the Symphonic Warriors, but what do we do with them? Well, anything you want, really. A pure version of the deck could focus on its synergies with Symph Amplifier, building up counters to make your monsters a huge battle threat, while leveraging some wacky boss monsters that seem a little out of place. But you could also just run a guitar mic setup in any deck that wants additional normal summons, and from there you've got some Pendulum Spice in your deck. But what can we play to help them out? Before we go any further, it's important we cover a Pendulum deck's best friend, Link monsters. Now, more than ever, links with a variety of downward-pointing arrows is a must, and in the rightful absence of Electromite, we need to find others that synergize with our strategy. Cliffort Genius gives you 2 zones and provides some effect negation, and if you Pendulum Summon, you can search mics out of your deck. Platinum Gadget also gives you 2 zones and can help special summon Symphonics out of your hand. Junk Converter also offers you the ability to Synchro Summon on your opponent's turn. The newly revealed Beyond the Pendulum is a pretty sweet inclusion, letting you grab any Pendulum monster from your deck. Just make sure you're ready to Pendulum Summon right afterwards for maximum effect. But Rubber Band Shooter is probably our best option for the extra normal summon, which does stack with the one provided by Mix, especially if you splash in Speedroids. I mean, they're both Wind Machine archetypes. None of Speedroid's lockouts stop you from playing Symphonics. But if you want to maximize your arrows, we can climb the ladder up to Selene. Now, you'll need a spellcaster to make this happen, and this is where our base Symphonics come into play, because Piano can turn one of our Link materials into a spellcaster. And if you play Effect Veiler, then hey, that's material for a Link 4. For Synchros, well, we can make all the usual suspects. Borreload Savage, F.A. Dawn Dragster, Ignister Prominence because we run Pendulums, Baron de Fleur. You can even make Nirvana High Paladin if you're feeling really spicy. But if we want to flex our type and attribute changing effects, we can summon Arcanite Magician for lots of removal, Dino Wrestler Giga Spino Savat for a big boss that can blow up cards and do a great Ancient Gear impression, Goyo Guardian to steal monsters, Michael the Archlight Sworn for banishing removal, Reptilan Melusine to keep our opponent's attack power in the gutter, Zoroa the Magistus Conflagrant Calamity to lock out a particular extra deck type, though that will require a lot of dedication in the extra deck, Beals for a sticky wall, or Void Ogre Dragon for spell and trap negation, and if you want to go absolutely bananas, change rocks to a Dark Dragon so you can use the myriad of Red Dragon Archfiend forms. For Xyz, we can already easily make Totem Bird and Lightning Chidori, but by using Drum's effect twice, you can also gain access to cards like Bahamut Shark, Stealth Kragan, Evil Swarm Nightmare, Raider's Knight, and if we use Piano, we can make Ice Beast Zerofine, Logia, and Dolka. As for a silly tech pick, well, Mike's gives us extra normal summons, and what can benefit from normal summons the most? That's right, Alistair the Invoker. Not only is our deck base wind, so we can automatically gain access to Raijin, we can change our attributes using drums, so we have access to any invoked fusion monster we want. And any Symphonic we banish as fusion material, we can summon back with synths, or get back to our hand with Mike's Pendulum effect. And like I said, with multiple normal summons means multiple invocation searches, which means we can get multiple invoked fusions out in the same turn. Let me ask you, who out there wants to deal with a Kaliga and Mechaba combo? Not me. And that's all I've got for Symphonic Warriors. Their tracks have a lot of layers to them. Between all the pendulum summoning, zone management, and parameter manipulation, there are a lot of directions you can take the deck, and if you want to get good at it, you better be ready to put in the hours. But once you bring all their disparate components together, you'll ride your way to victory on a symphony of cards. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Do you agree that Symphonic Warriors are the next chart-topping hit, or are they gonna need another rebranding to stay relevant? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like this video to show your support, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and share this video with someone you know that loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode was brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Nebula Navigators, Adam Zajadel, Benjamin Meisner, Eric, Gloomba331, Howling Zangetsu, John Manji, Panther J, Shooting Star 3300, Sun Sorrow and the Wizard Moose, and Cosmic Crusaders, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Colin Todd, RGS, and the Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. And if you'd like to be a part of the credits as well as help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, please check out my YouTube membership or Patreon links in the description to see if I have anything you'd like on offer. And if you want to see another video about a wild wind archetype, check out this video I did covering Shinobirds. And if you want to see two Yu-Gi tubers going at it, check out Noah Jenk and I's latest series, Progression Polls, where your voice shapes the format. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.